Let's welcome with a huge round of applause the second speaker for the second plenary session, Ms. Sundari Nanda, former IPS officer and Special Secretary, Internal Security Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, as the speaker for the session. Welcome, ma'am. And I would also request Ms. Gopi Trivedi, Honorary Joint Secretary at AMA, to become the session chair. Thank you very much. Take your seats. So the second plenary session, too, it is on fostering diversity and inclusion. So may I now request the session chair, Ms. Gopi Trivedi, who would also introduce the speaker for the session. But before that, let me introduce Ms. Gopi Jatin Trivedi. Ms. Gopi is a distinguished patent attorney and senior partner at YJ Trivedi and Company. She specializes in patent prosecution, intellectual property valuation, and technology law. A computer engineer, registered patent agent, and law graduate. She also holds a certified patent valuation analyst qualification. With nearly 2 decades of experience, she has successfully secured patents for clients across engineering, software, chemicals, and pharmaceuticals. Recognized among India's powerful women in IP 2021 by the World IP Forum, she has also received the Times Power Women Award in 2018, and Ms. Gopi has also received Excellence Award, Business Excellence Award in Women's category by the GCCI in the year 17 and 18. Currently, Ms. Gopi Trivedi serves as Honorary Joint Secretary at AMA. So now I hand over the proceedings to the session chair, Ms. Gopi Trivedi, with a request to introduce the speaker, Ms. Sundari Nanda. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aneri, for the generous introduction. But I'm basically a part of AMA, here to give back a little and learn a lot. So that's a continuous process. So my warm greetings to everyone present here. As we know, today's theme is you kind of sustain, scale, succeed, and as Savan Bhai has rightly mentioned, thrive. Right, so we all of us are taking this learning or the basics forward. So it's my absolute privilege to welcome you all to this insightful discussion on fostering inclusivity and diversity, a key part of regional management conclave. See, the diversity is often spoken and discussed in the corporate meetings, the boardrooms, but it also extends to the governance, the law enforcement agencies, policy making, and leadership at all spectrum of the society. The same principle applies to industries, and it's not only just about numbers, that this many numbers have been employed. It's basically about creating those environments where these diverse voices are valued, respected, and empowered well. Today, organizations must go beyond the policies and compliance to embed inclusivity. Rather, they should keep it in their DNA. We rightly heard from our previous speaker, Mr. Sanjay Kirloskar, that there is a whole factory set up in Tamil Nadu, which is run by women, and they are all able women, right? So they're making a strong impact, and they are voicing it out very clearly by their actions, not by just the policies and news. And it is not only about men and women segment, it is rather extended to neurodiversity, accessibility, even socio-economic backgrounds, not excluding the cultural perspective alongside the traditional markers like gender and ethnicity. When institutions embrace a broad spectrum of diversity, they actually foster growth, sustainability, and long-lasting impact and stand in the society. Whether it's an institution, whether it's a factory or a corporate sector, or even an NGO, everywhere these inclusion make a very, very long impact. To help us on this crucial subject, we have privilege to have a trailblazer. Uh, we have Miss Sundari Nanda here, an IPS. So before I introduce her, which is my absolute privilege, I would like to welcome her with a round of applause. I'm sure you'll all join. I have her, the introduction with me, but when you kind of search on internet, you will have pages, filled with the stories and the success benchmarks which she has created through innovative approaches. So with your permission, I would like to introduce you, ma'am. So Mrs. Sundari Nanda is an IPS officer from 1988 batch of Union Territories, that is AGMUT, cadre of Government of India. After an illustrious 38 years of career, she superannuated in December to 2024, very recently, as the Special Secretary, Internal Security, Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India, New Delhi. Over the years, she has served in various capacities with the Delhi Police as well as with the Goa, Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram, the Pondicherry Police, gaining extensive experience in law enforcement, counter-terrorism, emergency management, and human resource management within large police forces like Delhi One. A pioneer in the field of cyber crime investigation, she was instrumental in setting up the first cyber crime investigation vertical in the country in 2000, years back, while serving with CBI as Special Secretary for Internal Security. She played a key role in formulating cyber security policies and was the driving force behind the Indian Cyber Crime Coordination Center, often known as I4C. She has been even pivotal in addressing the rise of financial cybercrime, spearheading innovative solutions such as the 1930 helpline and the public awareness initiatives through mobile ringtones. Under her leadership, India hosted first ever G20 conference on cybercrime and cybersecurity, which was among the key conferences mentioned in the final G20 leaders declaration. Beyond cybercrime, she has led investigations into high-profile economic offenses during her tenure with the CBI and has contributed significantly to research and training, service as Director of Training at the Bureau of Police Research and Development. Not only that, she's always a learner. She is a Senior Chevening Fellow from London School of Economics. She conducted extensive research on the effects of globalization on crime and populations. She is also an alumna of the prestigious National Defense College, where she received recognition for her project on citizen services for national prestige events during 2010 Commonwealth Games. Her outstanding contributions have earned her President's Police Medal for Distinguished Service and the President's Police Medal for Meritorious Service. I can't stop myself than applauding you, ma'am. She is retired, but she hasn't stopped working. She's giving back to the society in her very own way. Currently, she serves as an expert council member of the National Security Work Stream at Niti Aayog's Frontier Tech Hub, led by NASSCOM. She also volunteers as an advisor of administration at Amrita Hospital, Faridabad, and very, very actively and passionately involved in mentoring young professionals across various institutes. Ma'am, indeed an extraordinary career. We really look forward to learning from you. Before we get into the fireside question and the audience question, we would want to hear from you explicitly. Ma'am, can I have you here?
A very good afternoon to all of you. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be here, as I always am when IMA gives me an invite. And at the outset, I would like to thank Rekha Sethi, because whenever she says, "Are you free?" I'll say, "Yes, I'm free," because I really love the kind of work IMA does, because in today's world and in today's ecosystems, sharing knowledge for bettering others is something pretty rare. And this particular topic is, it's both general and it is both specific, I would say. You can't define the nature of this topic. And whatever I'm going to tell you today, because I was told it's a format is just putting your thoughts together and then we have a discussion. So I've really not gone into any books or, of course, I did read up some, I'm aware of some researches and stuff, but this is basically my learnings through the last 38 years of my working life, what I have seen on ground. I mean, as in law enforcement, we see a lot of these issues on ground as well about diversity and inclusion. So this, I mean, if I may draw a parallel to the discussion that we were having before this session. So diversity and inclusion is something like, when we talk about women's affairs, women and children, it is like people will say, oh, this is always talked about. But the underlying importance of it is very, 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 impactful. Because if we ignore these issues, then the kind of effect, the multiplier effect, negative or positive, that it can have on all of us is absolutely huge. So these are things that we should not ignore because it really, there are no numbers in this, there is no, so because the more obtruse something is, the more difficult it is to handle. And we need to catch that issue by the horns and address it. So all of you would have heard of so I've just put down some thoughts which came up. All of you would have heard about the famous zoologist Desmond Morris, and you may have read his book, which is The Human Zoo. So it's very interesting that Desmond Morris holds that man is only a tribal animal, but unlike the tribes of those days, he's actually living in an urban jungle, which Desmond Morris takes the author's license to call a super tribe. And to prove the fact that we are tribals living in a super tribe, which is an urban jungle, he says that you just have to look at somebody's phone book. Invariably, you'll find tribal clusterings there. That is what he speaks about. He only scientifically proves what grandma's wisdom that we all know of said, birds of a feather flock together. And that is what he said. That is grandma's wisdom. Another interesting fact that he brings forth, Desmond Morris, is that there was no concept of a stranger in early tribal human history, since everybody in the tribe knew everybody else. So, I mean, because I want to kind of ignite your thinking so that the question answer session, we get more of it. While we really don't know whether the evolutionary rewiring of the brain has consequently happened or is a work in progress to handle this, that is, tribal man existing in super tribes today has no option but to continuously deal with strangers. This phenomenon is giving rise to different human situations in today's completely information technology gridded world, which only promises to get more complex with artificial intelligence, which threatens to override the innate human intelligence without, please mark this, without the emotional intelligence, empathy, and the compassion. The first shocker in India, as we all know, came a couple of years ago, you would recall, when there was an exodus of people from the northeast, from South India, back towards their hometowns in Guwahati. Thousands of panic-stricken people living in Bangalore, Chennai, and Hyderabad boarded trains and headed to Guwahati, following rumors of violence targeting them. This even would not stop even after the then Karnataka Home Minister visited the Bangalore Central Railway Station and made repeated appeals to the thronging crowds, including students and working professionals, especially in the services and security sector. Don't heed rumors. Not even a single case of violence has been reported, he said to an angry audience who alleged that the police had not responded to complaints made by victims in the last few days. We also know that apart from the chief ministers of these three states, the matter went up to the then Prime Minister, and the nation as such had to step in, including the Chief Minister of Assam. They had to step in an emergent way to reassure the scared citizens, and the situation took time to limp back to normal and businesses to pick up traction. It's interesting to note that many of those who spoke to the media then admitted that they did not know directly of any cases of violence. So it was hearsay. However, they said there was an atmosphere of fear and mistrust across the city, particularly Bangalore. And they said that the Assam media was reporting on some violent incidents in Bangalore and Mysore, creating panic in their home bases, in their hometowns, and their people were asking them to come back. Think of the cost. The cost of this exodus was huge to the services industry in South India. I don't think anyone has even, not that I know of, has even attempted to kind of work out a cost of this exodus. The talent which diversity brought, please listen, the talent which diversity brought could not be replaced. For that is what diversity brings in, the relevant talent. And we all know about the gentle, efficient hospitality which seems to be in the DNA from the people of the Northeast. More recently, manufacturers and industry leaders in Tamil Nadu were apprehensive of a large-scale exodus of North Indian laborers after purported videos of attacks on Bihari migrant workers in the southern state went viral. In an obvious bid to allay fears, Tamil Nadu CM had stated that the people of Tamil Nadu would protect Bihar migrants, but only such an assurance may not and cannot have had the desired result. So we constantly keep hearing about these internal immigration issues, and immigration issues are a hot topic across the world today. So somewhere down the line, there is definitely a problem. So I'm just giving you my thoughts on where is there a problem. Now this is happening in India, where there is a tradition of acceptance and tolerance endemically prevalent. The concept of Vasudeva Kudumbakam, that is, the world is a family, because human beings are one, it is one energy, the unity of mankind. Most of us have grown up in a traditional atmosphere of sensitivity and tolerance, and there are very beautiful examples of it across heterogeneous societies in India. It appears that this diversity grid, both in India and across the world, are being steadily hacked at by various interests and forces, prima facie, for misguided and misogynistic purposes. However, the good thing is the rhetoric and the actions so far appear largely political. I'm being very candid about a lot of things because this is a learning environment, and so we need to kind of face issues and discuss them if we are to benefit by this interaction. Now, this is a conundrum, since the principles of diversity and inclusion are also largely acceptable by and large to the political framework of all democracies. Diversity and inclusion are always there in all the political frameworks of all democracies. What also is reassuring is that in spite of all this anti-immigration and all this kind of talk, you scratch the surface of most societies across the board, and we actually find a thriving culture of diversity and inclusion at the grassroots. That is the individual, family, workplace, etc. The world, hence, has perhaps not seen so much of voluntary diversity after perhaps the colonization era, where the colonizers, by their very physical presence itself, brought in diversity to some homogeneous populations. However, even in pre-independence Bharat, society was heterogeneous at one level in terms of language, food habits, clothing, etc., which are all because of geography and climate, though culturally and spiritually, they were substantially homogeneous. That is, you talk about Rama, Krishna, Shiva, and Shakti who were worshipped in all parts of the peninsular landmass across various kingdoms. Kashi, Rameshwaram, etc. were common and deeply in the collective psyche of people, although they were very different in terms of clothes, food, language, etc. Hence, while contemplating on the topic of fostering diversity and inclusion, it just struck me that do we really have an option? We don't have an option. Diversity and inclusion is the de facto thing. The aptitude of, why? Because to me, the aptitude of the human mind depends on various inherited factors. And when a business is looking for talent or aptitude, good talent is manifested only when there is the right aptitude. Then there will naturally be a collection of such minds with the required aptitude and, where required, from whichever part of the country or world they may be. And that's what naturally led to globalization. The world may not be flat for everyone, everywhere, but there's no turning back the clock on globalization and the palpable effects it has already had. Many of you may have seen the Globalization Index, which is worked out by the Foreign Policy magazine and A.T. Kearney. It is so obvious which ranks various countries on various indices of globalization, etc. They do it every year. It is so obvious that never before have the forces of globalization been so evident in our daily lives. And I will give you some examples. For example, all of you younger people here would know that an estimated 2 billion people witnessed the Live Earth, a series of concerts held in 11 locations around the world to raise environmental awareness. That's one. Chinese manufacturers decorate toys with paint containing lead. And hence, what happens? Children around the world have to give up all their Batman and Barbie dolls. Mortgage lenders in the United States face a liquidity crunch and the global stock markets go berserk. Good, bad, and ugly, the effects of our supposedly flattened world are undeniable. But just how strong are these ties? As the UN Secretary General Kofi Annan once remarked, globalization is a fact of life, but I believe we have underestimated its fragility. Diversity and inclusivity, hence, are now actually the de facto mode of the world in almost all aspects that impinge on human survival. There is a diversity-backed globalization grid of people and systems to support global citizens, which has held the world together and which has taken us collectively to the place where we are today. Then why all this raging diversity-centric conflict? If if diversity and inclusion are there to stay, etc., then why all this conflict? The them and the us. Why all this problem? My thoughts are that the prevalence of technology-backed social media has actually broken the existing comfortable and ego-soothing stereotypes of an earlier established world order of countries, their people and populations. There was the rich and powerful West and then the rest. Simple. No complications. Many of you may have watched a viral video about a month ago about the CEO of Google, Mr. Sundar Pichai, who was insulted in the first. How many of you have watched that? The one of CEO Mr. Sundar Pichai. He was insulted in the first class cabin of an airline by an experienced air hostess who felt that this person in an ordinary jeans and t-shirt and carrying nothing on his person which was designer couldn't possibly belong to the first class. This bothered her so much that 2 hours into the flight, she actually went ahead and asked to check his boarding card. In spite of there were a lot of other people in the cabin who were pointing out to him and were excited, but nevertheless, her conditioning was so strong that she went and cross-checked his boarding card. What followed, of course, was a very typical Sundar Pichai masterclass on leadership and humility. But what this also brings out, what I'm trying to say is that the old stereotypes are no longer valid. And so, if we have to strengthen diversity and inclusion, we have to kind of make sure that people are aware that the old stereotypes are no longer valid. All stereotypes, by and large, maybe I'm wrong, but that we'll sort out in discussion, which are mostly a spin-off of colonization, and that is no longer relevant. Of this race is superior, that is inferior, etc., them and us. Think of the early decades. These are some of the thinking points. Think of the early decades when one traveled abroad. It was, who India? Where are you from, India? And those of my age group here, you have experienced that. Where India? Jungles, snake charmers, weird yogis. hunger, and then hunger, starvation, sickness, underdeveloped. Oh, bichare, poor country. That was the thing. So we didn't mind helping you. But today, viral social media videos show the big fat Indian wedding, the consumerism, driven by relentless marketing, and the spending power of the rich Indian, which has suddenly dented this embedded perception, and people are very uncomfortable. Oh, they have so much money to blow up, so why do they need help? Money is going away from us. These people have so much money to blow up. These people are taking away our jobs. So there is fear and insecurity because of dented perceptions. And this needs to be addressed and allayed to strengthen diversity and inclusion. So, in the background, if you think about and context of this complex inner mental ecosystem today, the ground fact is rational and different. Giving a paid opportunity to an individual who has the required talent to help a business to grow is not an act of charity. It is definitely not about giving a dole. So, this is something that has to come across. Somehow, the perception is that by giving you jobs, we are being charitable towards you, but that's not the fact. And what is required in this stereotype perception to be cleverly corrected, and that is what is required. The existing world order and realities have to be spoken about, and people help to understand the ground realities. For example, to the young people here, have you ever thought about it? Was I'm sharing it with you because when I thought about it, it really dawned upon me as to how important diversity is. What would have happened if America in the 1960s did not get the Indian engineers, the Japanese and Chinese workers when the US was under a state of construction? Did they have at that point in time the necessary talent to help them actualize a national vision, a business vision which they had? There was obviously a shortfall, and hence the inflow of talent from various countries and the manifesting diversity of that human talent. This diverse population actually has built America. Another fact that I'd like to put up before you is that the big human and the big planet, the big picture or the planet picture has already taken root with the millennials and Gen Zs, many of you are here in this room, which is largely the existing and future work groups. You already understand that every society across planet Earth has certain advantages and disadvantages in its innate nature because of the complex anthropological, genetic, historical, geographical, social, and political factors. I mean, it's so complex, which a human being brings to the table. It's just not an employee, he's a complexity of all these factors. At a point in time, one society's advantage is another society's perceived disadvantage, as it is just a perception, which may be because of lack of the right information or because of an established societal norm at that point in time. Now, let us talk about India's excessive population versus the youth dividend. Now, a couple of years ago, the then US President, Mr. Barack Obama, and then the First Lady, Michelle Obama, had been invited as chief guests to our Republic Day parade. Like every year, we invite a head of state for the Republic Day parade. One of my colleagues was the chief security liaison officer. He told us later that they were really impressed to see the school children and especially teenagers participate in the Republic Day parade, and they were asking questions about how did they practice, and when they were told that they would come in the cold January mornings, they would come every morning and they would practice for more than a month or so. They were highly impressed by that. And they said that, especially I believe Michelle Obama said that she would be so happy to see the day when they could get American teenagers of that age to come forward to participate in a parade like that. And so this is what we see as a traditional Indian upbringing. Perception says that this is an advantage or a disadvantage, but that disadvantage gives about this advantage, which was remarked upon by nobody less than the then President of the United States. So this, so actually what I would like to sum up is saying that this is an example which I like to drive home here, saying that the cultural, social, historical inclinations of a population, which is an advantage so far, is this youth dividend from India. So you are going places across the world. The advantages of your advantages being your education, your discipline, your lesser cost, and they are of advantage to the businesses that hire you. This is not charity. Nobody is king, nobody is pauper here. It is just that it is a need of the hour. One other thing that we have to address is the challenge of individualism versus the fact that no man is an island. Because very recently, in one of the, I had met somebody from the industry who said that now individualism is getting so, ingrained in the workforce that some companies actually have had to start pet creches. So there were pet creches which have started everywhere. People want to bring a rescued dog or a rescued cat to work. And if, in fact, it's so strong that if they don't, people object to the pet dog or the cat, people have actually even given up their jobs to such extent. So this is another trend that we see developing. So, and then another interesting thing is, why this perception? Various world leaders, I mean, we have all read about various world leaders apologizing for human rights violations. We had the president of New Zealand apologizing to the Aboriginal tribes, saying that they have wronged them. We have seen various leaders in Britain apologize to India for having colonized us, etc., etc. So, to the best of our knowledge, that most everybody has apologized to everybody for various, violations of human rights or for colonizing. So the stage is now even for us to become to take the whole thing of Vasudeva Kudumbakam, further on for the rest of the world. And another interesting thing which I would like to talk about is, we have there is a perception that HR policies are somehow not sincere and they're only cosmetic. And you talk about researchers, you talk about chief people officers, you talk about chief diversity officers. Somehow it is read that these are compliances only on paper. Of course, I'm not saying across the board, but this is what some research works have also pointed out. And this is a challenge across cultures, whether in blue collar, white collar, or high table sciences. So sensitization and training, which is most important and which are most ignored in most organizations, is something that I would really kind of flag here, which is important to maintain diversity and inclusion. And of course, the last but not the least, the one enduring answer is enlightened leadership at home, school, and work, which you spoke about, home, school, and work, which has a wholesome understanding that even though the basic instinct is birds of a feather flock together, it understands the content of Vasudeva Kudumbakam, the oneness of humanity. And I would end with the last issue here, which is, when you're talking about inclusivity and diversity, does it seem subsuming local identity? Now that is something which needs to be taken care of. When you're saying acceptance, that doesn't mean subsuming your own identity or for disregard for local customs, practices, and values. Because we see a lot of issues that happen across India, because even in Delhi, we have a lot of, like New York, Delhi has now got pockets of foreigners staying in various parts of the city. While the local people are very accepting and they've given them houses on rent, etc. But when these people do something which is against the local tradition there, then we have huge problems which happen out there. So that is why I think it's always been you, the industry, that has set and supported world standards in most things directly relevant to human existence, as history shows. So apart from the politics and rhetoric which is happening today, business and industry can make a palpable difference and keep the existing matrix of diversity and inclusion strong and healthy. And as I say, this world is like a fishing net. If we are all holding the net, if one shakes it at one corner, without doubt it would be felt in every other corner of the net. So if you want to net a good catch of fishes of future development, prosperity, and wellness of mankind, we have to make sure that none of us shake the net unnecessarily. Thank you so much.
Hello. Ma'am, it was very interesting, insightful, and thought-provoking speech from your end, which kind of summarize a few things and which led to few more questions. So what you rightly pointed that there is a dented perception which was then and now, and that has created a lot of fear and insecurity. Sadly, it is unseen because they are all there in the human mind, and that brings a kind of a discomfort and some illegal actions, and not responsible actions, I would say, by words or by even some hands-on deeds which are not fair in the eyes of law. So what do you think, ma'am, like how this psychological problem be addressed as a nation, as India, which is already a Gyan Guru, and we are those learned, we have the Gita Gyan, the perceptions, everything is blended in our daily lives, the mother's wisdom, but still, why do we feel fearful and insecure as a nation, as a society?
I think because across the world, at this point in time, we are all confused. We have a lot of values, we know what is right, but then looking at what is happening around us, we are also confused. So we kind of, something is not right, but we agree to that continuing to happen. So let's take a simple thing, like for example, the subject of live-in relationships, for example. You see, today, even as parents, we have kind of accepted it because we really don't know whether it is good or bad, especially after 3 years, then they split. Then you have, like, since I'm in law enforcement, and after 3 years of living together, suddenly the lady says that she's been raped. So it's confusing, it's confusing. So I think we are actually, calling a spade, I think society on the whole is confused about a lot of issues. So on one hand, it is like freedom to do whatever one wants. But if a public figure or an industry leader or anybody does even a small little thing, which is during his personal time, and you all are this, you're online, so what is the kind of, that thing, which is the trolling which happens, to that. So that makes me think that right now we are all actually pretty confused. We really don't know key. So that's what is important, because we had those things, we had those values, and the way technologies come up, and we've kind of, caught up in the development story. So we are really right now, very honestly speaking, we are in a stage where we need to rethink and redefine the path. And that is why I think when you look at the benefits of this thing called, I don't want to use Vasudeva Kudumbakam too often, because then again a perception, oh, this is something spiritual and religious, boring stuff. I don't know why they're talking about that. No, it is like, what is the logic behind it? Because it is like, the scientific fact is all humankind is one. There's one energy in all humankind. So that's a fact. If you call it quantum consciousness or whatever. Humanity will go on for millennials trying to figure out who we are. So while knowing that, we know that we are all the same. And then we have brought in science and technology, and somehow I feel that everything technology is good. So it's strange because AI, for example, like we say just AI is good, but I would say no, it's dangerous. There are good parts of it. There's also a lot of dangerous parts of it. Most of the world does not have regulations in place for AI. We are still trying to figure out where it is. Apart from the Digital Market Act of EU and all that, we still don't know where we are. So that is the reason, because we are in this flux. So we have to, in fact, do a kind of a balance sheet as to where we are, what do we want to do, and I think it's the right time to kind of reprioritize before AI kicks in, and people are so excited, oh, so cool, see, AI is hiring people. But then I'll tell you another story, because what I feel is why it's like AI, the same AI which you think is so cool, is hiring people, the same AI can make you non-existent online. Because if you look at the rational programming that AI will do tomorrow, if somebody reports me on Facebook and says that report something which I have written, and supposing my Facebook account is deleted. Now we have connected so many things to our Facebook account. Now that you'll get deleted from there also. And then of course your bank accounts will get deleted. And once you have a real danger of you being absolutely dead online. You see, you won't exist online. So we are at that very funny space because, and can you imagine with everything being online and you being non-existing online, it's actually a very, very real danger today. So that is why we say, because at this point in time of the meeting of the human mind and its development, especially information technology and technology, has kind of confused all of us. So that's why I say, we are in a perception flux at this point in time. I'm being very honest about it, actually. Yeah.
Very, very well said. But now bringing back the attention to our true inclusion, which is about various aspects, not only male and female. It's about the the diversity, which brings in by even accessibility or different socio-economic backgrounds, different states. Now, how has been your experience, and how practically you took certain actions which brought inclusion in during your leadership in this various complex while playing the various complex role rather?
Yeah, I think it's just I think what is important is empathy, putting yourself into the other person's shoes and finding out like if you're talking about inclusion, what we were discussing, like for example, when you want more and more women to work, and so for example, providing them with last mile connectivity to go to work, if the company takes care about what is the neighborhood she's coming from, and if she's going for late night work, the last mile connectivity to work. And then of course, sensitivity to the fact that as a woman, she, like the mother's role, the childbearing phase, etc., which is actually also very heartening because I keep following this up. And I find that many companies are encouraging women to come back after childbirth, etc. They're giving leave to kind of take care of children, etc. So these are all, which, like I said, there is a lot of diversity and inclusion. I've said very emphatically, it is de facto, it is there. Except that in between we are confused. And then again, in media, it's hot news to, see, that's the confusion. It's hot news to report something negative because it will sell. So it is not necessarily the fact. So I think the challenge here is being able to, we have to have a discriminative sifting of this humongous information, tsunami which is on us. Among this, I would really say this information tsunami. Every morning you wake up, you look at your phone, all kinds of stuff is there on the phone, information, a tsunami of information. But what is it that is actually required for you? You need to sift through it. You need to be, that discrimination is required. This is required, that is not required. I will do this social media, I won't do that. So that I think is the biggest challenge before all of us today. Yeah.
So just 2 or 3 decades back, we had to make less decisions every day, whether, kind of I'll play or study, I'll go to my uncle's place or study. I think these generation have more decisions to make in a daily and micro basis because of this influx of information.
Yes.
Okay. Moving ahead, we would like to know, ma'am, what is your kind of current role at NASSCOM, and how you feel this cyber security would, help into even bringing the diversity situations under control?
See, the thing is, I'm one of the expert council members for Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog, in fact, has got this frontier tech hub, which is now to promote, to look at policy for use of technology for the coming years for our country. Cyber security is very, very, see, when you say cyber security or when you say national security, today the entire thing is very, very different. For example, so when you compromise citizens' information, when you compromise identities, for example, I'll just share with you during G20, there were these hacker collectives across the world, which were hacking all, small institutions across the country on that last day, that 2-3 days before the last global leadership summit. left, right, and center, all educational institutions, colleges, which apparently did not have the best, very strong websites. And so you found on the darknet, you found information about students, their mobile numbers, their addresses, etc., floating on the darknet for anybody to pick up. So that's so today national security is not that old perception we had, like country, borders, barbed wire, man, gun. No, it's not like that. It's come right into our homes, into our bedrooms, because there's so many instances where a mother is thinking that a child is studying, but then if you have these pedophiles coming, and then you have so many kids being trapped by pedophiles sitting right there under your nose, and you have so many kids who are, in fact, you all must have heard about the scam centers in Southeast Asia. The scam centers where thousands of kids from across the world have been lured into these scam centers, and they're very happily sitting there and scamming the rest of the world. And they think there's nothing wrong with that. So this is a complex problem which we as humanity have to face today. You see? So, that's why I'm saying I keep coming back to technology, because I think this technology has just about redefined everything. It has redefined national security. So here we are looking at, for example, now we all have heard about digital arrests and all those things, financial crimes which happen. So this work which we are going to do is like whichever technology comes in. Earlier what happened, because from the commercial side when we were growing, so we went into, India was one of the countries that I think this planning was so smart that the government went into the telecom sector and all first. The private sector didn't go into it. So with the private sector, so that infrastructure was laid out across the country. And so when computerization came in, so this backbone which is already existing helped the entire computer boom in the country just take off like a rocket. And so when that took off, then came the fintech, came the startups, came all of that. So we quickly built a nice 1,000-roomed villa, I would say. But then we forgot to put in door somewhere, we forgot to put in a window somewhere, we forgot to put a latch somewhere. And that is what led to this complete thing. So this work which we are going to do is for further deep tech which is going to come in, for further things that are going to come in. There's so many other aspects. Like I said, this has completely changed the definition of national security. Yes. Like for instance, there are foreign powers who have in fact detailed the entire biodata of scientists across our country. Yes, including their weaknesses. Yes. So, and then they can get in touch with them anytime. So so we are basically looking into such kind of issues.
Yeah, that's absolutely. We can keep on having the conversation with Madam, but we'll have the last question and then the forum will open for the open question answer. So, ma'am, would like to have one golden advice from you to how to kind of navigate or maneuver this complex issue alongside this technological intervention, especially for the youth.
No, I think I am a great, look, I really not too comfortable giving advice as such, because I think situation changes, and I think all of us sitting here know it is, ultimately it is about the human being. I mean, it's the same red blood, it is the same human being, and human beings are human beings across the globe, whether it is Antarctica or whether it is, South India, wherever. The human beings are human beings, the needs are the same, the wants are the same.
So if I just summarize, it's all about empathy.
It's all about empathy and just understanding that we are all just humans, that's it.
Great. Yes, it's really, really inspiring and very strong-headed discussion. Thank you very much, ma'am. The forum is open, so we can pick up 2 or max 3 questions. So may I ask volunteer to kind of reach out to those who raise their hands?
One there, one here, and one here.
Hello, good morning, Madam Speaker and the chair.
Where are you?
Yeah,
Right here. Okay.
So it was really wonderful and insightful, the thoughts that you shared about diversity and inclusion. So how could businesses use, if there are any matrices or indicators, to measure the effectiveness of diversity and the inclusion initiatives?
Well, like I said, I'm just speaking from experience with that. But I would just say it is about, I think there has to be a pattern study on attrition. And then there has to be an analysis of what kind of attrition is taking place. Is there a pattern to an attrition? Because it happens, in any industry, there is the mainstream population. Say if you talk about Delhi, or you say talk about the Delhi police, let me put my example. So if you talk about Delhi police, largely most of them are from Haryana and, Western UP, right? And then, some parts of Rajasthan. Now, if I find that there are too many people who are, quitting the job, and they are from a certain section of society, and this like every place is an organization, whether it's a business, whether it's a government organization, these issues are everywhere. Like, because we went in for all India recruitment, because Delhi has people from all over the country. So when you get people from the Northeast, for example, we have, and they are born commandos, they're very good. So those people, when they are there, so we used to keep tab on if people are leaving from there, why? So that's a red flag. So you have to I don't think there's a one formula fits all, but I think a general thing is, if there is a very constant pattern analysis as to the kind of attritions or even the kind of complaints coming in to the grievance redressal mechanism which is there in every organization, that should be, I think, a marker for that. And then keeping communication channels open. I think that is very, very important, because I find, like the government, even companies have a huge bureaucracy. It's very difficult for a person on ground to get in touch with the person who can actually make a decision. My experience, I've seen it's the same everywhere. But if there is a good channel of communication and people who are not sulking in the grievance redressal because they think it's not a frontline job, and then if they take that seriously, I think that would get sorted. Yeah, thank you.
Can we have the next question? Somebody there. You can even reach out here. We'll come to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Chitwan Dangar and I am studying entrepreneurship at LJ University. And coming to the question, as you said earlier, that the big fat wedding of India, which changed the perception around the world about India. So can you please elaborate on that? Like, how did that happen?
No, it happened because what happened, again, that's because of ICT. You see what happened? Indian weddings today, like Bollywood style weddings, it's become a fashion, and today it's become a fashion to shoot reels and YouTube videos, and then it goes viral everywhere because Indians are everywhere. So you kind of like those and promote those, etc. So if I am sitting in the US and all of us have either children or siblings studying in the US, so the perception there is like, oh, you guys are so rich. Because if you can spend so much of money in that kind of, what is the cost of that wedding, then you're definitely not a poor country. It's a perception. There are parts of India which are still very poor, no doubt about it. But a perception is not necessarily built upon all facts. Perceptions are built upon the most pushed fact. That is the thing, yeah.
But the perception could be negative as well. Like, these people are bragging. They are trying to improve their image, as their image is quite deteriorated around the world.
Whose image? I didn't get what you're asking for.
Like, India is usually considered as the stinky people or the poor people with no civic sense. So if a person is like this Ambani's wedding, they are trying to push it a lot around the world. So it could be a negative effect, like they are trying to brag or something.
See, that is, again, we are not talking, the norm is the median norm. We are not, what you're mentioning is two extremes. You're talking of poverty and you're talking about another level of luxury. We are not talking about that because statistically, those figures are very minimal. That is the extreme statistics, extreme this and extreme that. I'm talking about the general thing. Even in our own weddings, you see, all of us here, we have families, there are weddings in our families. Don't you see the kind of, today the amount of money, let's take it this way, the amount of money that is just spent on photography, videography, pre-wedding shoot, post-wedding shoot, falana shoot, this shoot, in a wedding today is much more than during our times. We didn't care about that. And that's not sitting idle on somebody's phone, it's being circulated, right? You have your answer there. Yeah, yeah. That's what creates that perception. May be right, may not be right. Fair enough. But that's what does it. Yeah.
Yes, the perception is really floating. Can I have the question from the gentleman in the middle row?
I think he's been putting the gentleman there.
Yes.
Yet he's been asking.
Good afternoon. Ma'am, you covered a lot of things. You spoke about AI, you spoke about inclusiveness. I have two specific things which I thought I'll bring up here. One, when you look at AI, one thing that comes up is, and I'm linking it to the influx of the information that comes in. Today, you have some kind of a warning message which comes in when you call up someone, right? Similarly, similarly, we would look forward to some kind of a message spread, even for the corporates and SMEs and MSMEs, because there is a lot of financial illiteracy prevalent within that sector also. Considering the cyber frauds and the threats which have increased over the last couple of years, post-COVID especially. You spoke about the hacking of the institutes during G20. One more incident that came to light was there were multiple electoral rolls also. Now I'm not aware whether it is truth or it's a rumor which was spread across. But with this kind of influx of information, we are not able to identify what is truth, what is false. Point one. How does one differentiate between the two? So whilst government of India is taking a lot of steps to get the videos deleted on YouTube, banning certain portals and gaming, TikTok is one of the examples. But what more can the GOI get into? I mean, what are the necessary steps further to increase this awareness and distinguish between the truth and the fact? Second point related to AI. I think the way AI is increasing, an individual, an average Indian also needs to increase the level of his or her intelligence to differentiate between truth and false. So deepfake is one of the cases. How do we distinguish? And what is the literacy level that the GOI is planning for? Of course, Niti Aayog is working very hard on that. A few things, but a few words from your side, since you are actively associated with Niti Aayog and NASCOM. Thank you.
See, I would basically say you actually answered the question yourself. You know, like I'll tell you why. Yeah, please. Yeah.
Please switch it on.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah.
See, with a humongous population, with a lot of different ethnicities, languages, and all, probably we are looking at one strata of the country. Second, a particular demography, which is metros, right? You still have mobile users who use the keypad phones. Are they losing money? Yes, they are. So the point is we are approaching one level, but then is it percolating enough to reach to the grassroots?
Yeah.
Maybe tier 2, maybe tier 3, maybe tier 4. Sitting in metros and mega cities, we keep on hearing a lot of things. But I'm not too sure whether it is reaching tier 3, tier 4 cities as well. Right?
Great.
Yeah, all yours.
You'll be very interested to know that the largest number of cyber criminals are from the rural parts of India. So that answers your question. So the penetration is huge. That's what I said, because in India, this entire thing was built upon, you remember India at that point in time, I remember one professor of Harvard University in a lecture was mentioning that what a smart thing India has done. As soon after independence, we invested in telecom, healthcare, etc. So when you travel across the country, and I've traveled very widely, whether it is Mizoram or whether it is deep Tamil Nadu or the tip of Okha in Gujarat or Kashmir, you have, at the village level, you have this infrastructure laid out very well. So it has taken off on that. So what I'm saying is, about the thing about technology and everything penetrating down, it has. without any doubt. But the problem is people getting to discriminate whether this is the right technology, how much of it to use, or whether there are young people who, you see, it's very complex, like the school education system. Obviously, many of these people in Jamtara, these boys, are technically illiterate, okay? But they're technologically very literate, that they can do all these kind of things. So somewhere we have to kind of reimagine our education system so this particular talent is tapped in. You know, they could be maybe ethical hackers, they could do so much, but then you have to kind of, you know, we have to it's a very complex phenomenon. I won't go into that. That's a thing. Now, regarding the SMEs, etc., that you spoke about, see, it is about you learning. It's the change starts from within you. Government of India has done so much, but then you see, somehow I feel, with all due respect, somehow in India, we citizens don't learn about ourselves and our governance systems. There are so many young adults, for example, in this room, who will tell me what is the difference between a complaint and an FIR. Elementary. Somebody goes to a police station, gives a piece of paper and says, "Humne FIR kar diya." It is not. That paper you gave in the police station is not, almost not worth the piece of paper it is on, because until it is converted into an FIR, and that FIR has a name and year, etc. So it's not. So that self-education is a must. And especially so for SMEs and all, because that was what was concerning us during the G20. Small colleges, small businesses were being hacked left, right, and center. And the developers who've done your websites, etc., were obviously not using the latest, were not aware of the security needs. Because it's nobody's fault. I think we just evolved together like that. So these things, awareness have to come, and you have to know where to look. And that is why, like organizations like IMA, like Data Security Council of India, they're doing a lot of work. It has to come. And Government of India, of course, is doing more and more on that. But then it is something which, even AI, which information to take, which, there are various things now. Like even your WhatsApp business chats come with a blue tick. The industry also is doing what they can do. I mean, to kind of help you discriminate between that. So it is about the source of information or the nature of information. They're two different things. The blue tick on the WhatsApp or on, say, Twitter or thing, the blue tick means it's verified, it's a verified source of information, that's all. But the information in that, whether it is good or bad, it's anybody's guess, there's no answer for it. Yeah?
Thank you.
That's why the discrimination has to grow, that's all.
So it's time to be wise in regards to the information being disseminated or even consumed, right? I'm sorry, lady, we can't take up your question. It's short of time. We will take it up after this session. Thank you so very much, ma'am, having you here, reaching out to this many souls. Many thanks from Ahmedabad Management Association, AIMA.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Sundari Nanda, for an insightful session from how alarming the AI is and how we are becoming the victim of digital arrest. So I would request Ms. Gopi Trivedi to please felicitate ma'am with a memento. So the three words that ma'am said, reinvent, reconsider, and reprioritize, is the necessity of an hour. Thank you very much for the second plenary session. We have filled up our minds with a lot of knowledge and insights. Let's fill up our stomach with delicious lunch and reinvent ourselves get ready for the second half of the day. Thank you.